Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, Axe Rotation, however the flip you know me on these interwebs. And today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick recap of what happened during week 3 of stage 3 of the CDL. That, of course, being our first stage going into our first major of the 2026 CDL season. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed the intro. Just a couple quick housekeeping things. I've been sick since Saturday during the Optic Faze series, so that's why you guys are seeing all of these highlights go up at once. I've just been on my back, fighting for my life, and yeah, I mean, the flu, this northeastern flu is infamous for sure. Like I said in the description, I don't know no one reads those, but yeah. Anyways, I've been sick, so I've been uploading everything, my backlog from last week and this week at my leisure, because, you know, small content creator, I got other things going on. So just been taking my time resting up and making sure I can get back to you guys this weekend. It will not be easy, but I'm committed as always. So yeah, without all of that yap, let's get into the match. So first of all, we kick things off with G2 Minnesota taking on the Riyadh Falcons, and as you guys can see, it was a 3-2 in favor of Celium, the Snaky Boys, the Pretty Boys, the Betty Boys, whatever you want to call them, the Water Boys if you're from Atlanta. Don't call them that, that's disrespectful as hell. But let's get into it. We had a 3-2 like I said before. The Riyadh Falcons are starting off this year with just as many wins as I believe they had on the entirety of the season last year, that being 3. So great start for them to the 2026 campaign. G2 Minnesota, surprisingly 1-4. I've been very high on this team. They've just had some disappointing results as of late, and they've lost 3 Game 5s. So Heart Attack G2 is still in form. Now, looking at the series, we had an absolute banger. Who was the MVP but Mr. Leahy, Pred himself, whatever you want to call him. Bet on Pred, bet on the spread, whatever you want to call it. So, looking at the series overview, Pred was the standout for the Riyadh side with 101 kills, 89 deaths, a 1.13 for those of you that like clean numbers. And on the G2 side, who else but Mr. Estriel? He was handing down that justice, no judge dread with a 1.11 best KD for the G2 side, but of course Kremp was obviously clear standout with 13,000 damage. Now looking at the map 1, we had Kremp Losses, and of course it went the way of G2 Minnesota behind a 41 bomb from Kremp. Dude dropped 41 and 54 in the same weekend on this map. He's definitely him. They might just start banning this one. On the Riyadh side, you of course had everybody doing their very best. Bulldog was a standout with 32 and 31, but close but no cigar. Estriel's right there with his SMG duo Kremp, dropping a 1.52, dropped his nuts on him, and that's how we got to map 2. Map 2, S&D exposure went 6-4 in favor of the Riyadh Falcons, of course behind an 11-6 from who else but King Cobra, Celium, whatever you want to call him, MC, one of the GOATs. Yeah, he just put them all on the table. And Kismet, same thing, 9-5, so Bulldog was there, and everybody on G2 went negative. So looking at the overload on Den, that being the map 3, this went 2-1 in favor of Riyadh. Of course, this wasn't really super surprising. G2 have not been really the best overload team. They've been okay, but they've been losing overload pretty consistently. So this is not all that surprising in the grand scheme of things. Pred 25 and 20, Kiz 24 and 14. And then on the G2 side, everybody negative with the exception of Estriel 21 and 20, so barely pause, and Skies 22 and 20, which is barely pause. Negligible positive KDs, but they still at least went somewhat positive. Looking at the map for HP on Den, we of course had this one going the way of Minnesota G2 as well. This went 250 to 249. This series had 2 of the most insane hard points back to back that I can think of in recent memory. 234 to 250 and 250 to 249 is insane. So yeah, I'll have to do some research, like to see what some of the closest series are. That was a video idea I had, but that's a later down the road sort of thing. Looking at it, we had the Riyadh Falcons, of course, putting up a really, really valiant effort. Pred and X, of course, that former SMG duo, dropped 32 and 33 respectively. So yeah, they had a great showing, but G2 Minnesota, of course, just were a little bit better. Kremp 35 and 31. I mean, Kren, we have Kremp losses, and maybe we have Kren. So this dude just runs HP. Looking at Kremp losses game 5, this of course went the way of the Riyadh Falcons. Did not go the way of Kremp. So Celium popped off for 11 again. 11 and 4 this time in the game 5 to send the Riyadh Falcons supporters home quite happy. Cramp 7-6, and everybody on G2, it must be said, nobody really had that much of a stinker. 4-6 from Sky is not that crazy considering he's your sniper. Not really too much of a stinker from anybody. They just didn't really have much for the Riyadh side, and they clearly just got trounced. Now, looking at our next series, we of course had the Miami Heretics taking on the Carolina Royal Ravens, so let's check that out. So this is where we first got our introduction to the new look Exceed in the CDL, replacing Litigo, of course, and yeah, becoming the new IGL of this team. So Exceed, he's really injected a lot of really positive things into this team that I really like. The fundamentals, the patience, the overall play calling. I just feel like Exceed adds an air of tact that this team was missing, and also just a layer of understanding that was kind of missing between Slasher and most of these younger players over the last few years, right? Like Snoopy, etc. So, I think that's what Exceed does to fix this team before we get into the series, and I think that's why this was such a transformative weekend for them. So looking at it, we had our match MVP. Who else but Emperor Nero himself, the good Emperor Nero. History's Emperor Nero's, yeah, if you don't know, read up on it. But anyways, let's not get into historical fact. Let's get into statistical fact. Rancor, of course, on the Miami Heretics was a standout on their side with the 1.14. And then on the CRR side, we of course had who but Mr. Emperor Nero for a day. And yeah, I mean, he's never given up that emperorship, right? So looking at the map 1, we had Blackheart HP coming back into the mix. It's been gone for a little bit, but I don't know about you guys. I am a Blackheart lover. I really enjoy this map. I think it plays great. I'm not going to lie, I fry on the shit. And yeah, I'm happy to see it back in the league. Can't wait to see him ranked. And yeah, I'm happy to see Blackheart. Miami clearly was happy to see it because they belted these guys 37-22 out of medals, 27-24 out of Rancor, 29-19 out of his AR duo super, and everybody on the Carolina Royal Ravens side was waiting for that takeover because they were all on that Gatorade icon. So, looking at the map 2, another blowout this time for the Carolina side. They won this Den 6-3 behind a strong performance from who else but that boy Craze, Jay Stud's prodigy, you know, his mentor, if you will, his Studdy if you didn't know. So, yeah, Studdy and Craze have been playing for a long time, which is actually pretty fire. But anyways, Miami Heretics were not fire in this one. They were agua. They were completely just soaked. Pause. 11-3 from Craze, like I said. Exceed, Burger King, no more. The King of Snipes, 5-3, and then Nero 6-3. So everybody just had their feet up. Craze was just around the map, just doing dirty work. Map 3. Speaking of dirty work, we had a 4-3 scar in favor of the Miami Heretics. Thanks, Epic Games, for the notification on the free game. But yeah, we had a 4-3 on the Scar, and it was behind a really strong performance from Nero, of course, 29-24. But it wasn't just an overperformance from Nero. Everybody did their part on the Carolina side, and their cohesion and their teamwork is just a step above. They were leading most of this game, I believe. I believe so. Let's see. Miami scored before the half. Yeah, I think it was like 3-1. So, yeah, it was a pretty dominant win from Carolina. They just had their feet up, and then Miami made it close towards the end, which happens with a lot of these overload games, especially this past weekend. So, that'll be a theme. Now, looking at our last map where we ended this series and ended our Friday, consequently, we of course had Rancor dropping 41-32 for the L. Trakes, of course, the new rookie upstart on that team, 1.17, 34-29. Great series, or great map, excuse me, from him. And then on the CRR side, Craze, of course, went Craze again, 33-33. Lurk, 33-32, his SMG duo. And then you had Nero going 34-29 as their main flex. I believe he's the flex. Pretty sure Exceeds an AR and Nero's main flex. But yeah, regardless, they are winners of this series. And yeah, we're going to go next. So looking at our next one, we had a Blinkerton, ladies and gentlemen. Don't hit that pen. You're not seeing things too crazy. You don't need to like, oh, get right. No. The Faze got right. Right to those Optic ass cheeks. Just lashes after lashes after lashes. And who was the MVP but Mr. Jordan Abuza himself? This was a real surprise for me. I expected to be the CEO of Optic. You know, he owns that org, he runs that org. Give me that key. And yeah, honestly, Draza, he had a transcendent series. You guys, all jokes aside, know I was expecting this one to be an Optic masterclass. Speaking of people playing for their lives, we have Faze Vegas trying to keep Mercules from taking the cheeks yet again. So I thought Optic, with the format they've been in, I felt like they would just kind of buzzsaw these guys. Faze, new team, figuring it out. Optic, defending champ, stuck. But, yeah, they got stuck all right with the Semtex and blown the fuck up. Damn. I mean, let's look at this box score, guys. So, of course, we saw Abuza, 1.67 HP KD, even S&D KD, and a 1.21 in overload. 3 maps, so, not a lot to look through. But looking at the whole team, I mean, everybody did their part. 04, 63, and 60. Abuza 76 and 55. Draws 74 and 57. And then Simp, the pimp with no limp, 63 and 54. So let's look at the map 1, Scar HP. It went not even close to the wire. I mean, this is a whole hill and a half's different, or a hill and a quarter's difference, right? So Faze won this pretty decisively, 75 seconds. I mean, over a minute. Yeah, you definitely won. So looking at it, of course, on the Optic side, you had everybody going negative, Splash, 0.75, Hook, 0.88, Merc goes even, and then Shotzi the 0.68. And then on the Faze Vegas side, everybody's just shooting, except for Simp with a rare off performance. Draws a 43 and 27, Abuza 40 and 24, and 04 33 and 32. Draza did say that they've been talking a lot of shit out, like based on scrim results, so this kind of makes sense. Looking at the map 2, we of course had a 6-4 in favor of the FaZe Vegas boys, but look at this. Look at this breakdown, guys. So Optic win 3 of the first 4, then FaZe win 4 of the first 8, right? And then FaZe win 4 of the back 6, let's say, and then Optic win second to last, and Faze close it out. So that was a pretty impressive game flow, right? Faze were getting trounced in the first couple maps, and clearly that was all responses, figuring out what they wanted to do and never looking back, right? So looking at it on the Optic side, everybody went negative. Everybody had a pretty bad game, with the exception of Hook, who dropped 8, which is very, very, very solid. And then on the Faze side, everybody just kind of did their part, and it was a real team effort. They played really well, really cohesively, and then, of course, Simp dropped 11, so that's pretty much that. Looking at the map 3, Den Overload. Faze, honestly, they look to be one of the better Overload teams in the game, which is not that surprising. They were consistently one of the better control teams when they did not troll in that mode. They outslayed, and they managed lives pretty well consistently. It's just against top teams, LA Thieves, etc. They were able to figure things out at the end of the year. But Faze was consistently a top objective-minded team in control and domination as well. So, not really too surprising that basically, like, I guess the spiritual core of this Faze team, that being Draza and Simp. Like, Draza has a lot of the intangibles that Faze as an org has always had with their players, so that continuation kind of makes sense with those two being the core of it. And yeah, I mean, looking at it, you have 04, 24, and 21, Abuza 29 and 24, Draza 23 and 25, and then Simp 29 and 18. So, honestly, they just got firebombed. Now, looking at the next series, we had the Vancouver Surge with TJ Halley, feeling like Tej, right? Taking on the Boston Breach. If you guys didn't know, Tej was actually one of the inaugural Boston Breach signees, so that's a fun fact. But enough fun facts, let's look at fun stats, right? So looking at it, we had the Vancouver Surge getting their first win of the season. They are now 1 and 4 on the season instead of 0 and 5, which would have been obviously the converse outcome. And the Boston Breach are now sitting at 2 and 2. So let's look at these match MVP. We of course have TJ Halley with a 1.06 in hardpoint, 1.27 in S&D, and a 1.09 in overload. And then looking at the series overview, of course you can see we were all feeling like Tej, right? I mean, 96, 94 and 86, you had to give him the match MVP even though Abe had a better performance just because it's his return. These guys had not won a map all year, and then they went on to win a series with a insane reverse sweep. Got to tip Tej. And on the Boston Breach side, the only person to go positive was who else but Snoopy, the superstar of the team. So looking at map 1, we of course had a 250 to 205 in favor of the Boston Breach. You could see that the Vancouver Surge had definitely made considerable improvements, but they were just trying to figure things out on this Scar, which they decidedly probably don't have a lot of practice on just yet. So I expect them to get more comfortable with this one, but nonetheless a great showing for a new team. If you're not getting creamed, then you have room to grow, right? So looking at the Boston Breach side, you of course had everybody going positive, Cammy going even, Nasty going slightly positive, 24 and 23, Purge 30 and 28, and then Snoop, your SMG king of the lobby, going 29 and 24. Now looking at the exposure S&D map 2, not really a lot to write home about. Honestly, it was a pretty dominant one from the Boston Breach. And Cammy, of course, popped off in this one. He was honestly, his wiggles in this map were insane. Like, I was just watching Cammy move around, chow stuff. I was like, damn, why are you chowing that, bro? Like, why are you chowing that? But it worked. It worked. He just got out every time. I'm like, damn, one more bullet, and he would have been cooked in a lot of these scenarios. But hey, Cammy, I mean, he's a wiggling master, and he has been for years. So I can't even get mad at him. I'm like, you know what? If anyone got the wiggles, it's Cam in most of these situations. He's been doing that ever since we've seen him in the CDL. Now, map 3, Exposure Overload. This one was much closer, decidedly. This was a 3-2, as you guys could see, in favor of the Vancouver Surge. Abe was, of course, a standout on the Vancouver side, dropping 28 and 24. And then TJ was right there with him, relatively speaking, 24 and 22. This was more of just a dog game. Like, everybody's just in the pit. And it was really just objective efficiency and team pushes that won the Vancouver Surge this game in the end. That was really the difference maker. They had more pressure, more cohesiveness as a unit, and that's why they were able to take this one. Nasty with a 1.26 for the L is tough, and then Snoopy with a 1.19 for the L is also tough, but it was a very close game, so no one really has anything to be that disappointed about. Looking at the map before, speaking of things people don't have anything to be disappointed about, the Vancouver Surge came out hot, took that belt, and gave the Boston Breach some vicious lashes. Of course, TJ 30 and 23, and his former duo from last season on the Carolina Royal Ravens, Gwyn, also popped off for a 30 piece, 32 and 28, and everybody else on the team did their part going very positive. And then on the Boston Breach side, only person to go positive was who else but Mr. Snoopy. Now, looking at the game 5 that, of course, came, it was a blinker. Blink and you'll miss it. I mean, yeah, everybody on Boston Breach, they hit the pen and they dug Sensor Martin. They just removed all thumbs and all skill and just chowed. So, yeah, I mean, 9 and 3, feeling like Tej, feeling like Ave, feeling like Gwyn, feeling like Lunars, feeling like we out, and they got smacked. Now, looking at the next series, we had Cloud9 New York taking on the Paris Gentlemates, and yeah, the last train to Paris was almost late. So let's check that out. So the Paris Gentlemates got a 3-1 record on the season. Of course, their lone loss so far has come to who else? Vegas Faze. Ironically, these guys are just the reapers of the top teams, even though everyone has basement level expectations for Simp once again. Funny how that works, isn't it? So looking at the series overview, this one was actually pretty crazy. We had a round 11 and a 250-249 to start off the series. So if you missed any of those highlights, this is actually the most recent set of highlights I uploaded at time of uploading or recording this video rather. And yeah, it was honestly one of the better series that I've seen in a while. Super fun, super surprising, very sticky performances from each team. That's the best I could describe it. Neither team wanted to give up. They were both very neck and neck, and it felt very evenly matched, but it was a very surprising even matchup. So, Ghosty, of course, was our series standout with a 1.25, 1.67 in S&D, of course, 1.25 in HP, and then a 1.35 in Overload. So let's look at the series overview. We, of course, had, like I said, Ghosty stand out from the Gentlemate side, 1.32. Damn, this dude's been frying since the break. And then on the Cloud9 New York side, the only person to go positive was, of course, Vivid. He went even. And then Afro, of course, was the obvious standout, 101 kills and 102 deaths. 0.99. I mean, he's basically even. Looking at the map one, speaking of basically even, we had it go down 250 to 249. This was an absolute banger. You guys know I play highlights in the background, so don't worry. I'll show you all the coolest matches and all the coolest moments and all the coolest stuff because, you know, I'm just cool like that. Anyways, you know who else is cool like that? Envoy. He dropped 33 and 28 for a big dub in this map one where they really needed him to rebound, get right, lock in, and help them to usurp the Cloud9 New York side, who were really on a hot streak to start, right? Mac and Afro went absolutely nuts in this map. 36 from Mac, 31 from Afro. And then, honestly, Beans and Vivid, they were really, really good in this map as well. Like, they were just contributors. They were all over the place. Vivid was getting really crucial kills. Beans was anchoring really well as an AR player and just playing positioning really well, getting setups, breaking hills. I mean, it was just a masterclass S&D. Like I said, if you missed it, go back and watch it. Absolute banger. Super fun one. You will not be disappointed. Map 2, speaking of one you will not be disappointed in, we ended the map with a sniper ace from Benjamin Beans himself. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, a sniper ace in round 11. If you missed it, I made a YouTube short of that. Of course I had to, right? Like, that's an obligatory YouTube short. So yeah, check that out on the shorts page if you missed that clip specifically. If you missed the whole match, that's there as well. But fun S&D for sure. 12 and 6 out of Beans, 8 and 5 out of Vivid. And then on the other side, Envoy just went nuts in this S&D. 14 and 7, and that was not enough. Somehow it was not enough. Map 3 was kind of interesting. Honestly, the Paris Gentlemates were getting absolutely trounced throughout the entirety of this map. They were down 5 to 1, I believe, and then they were able to bring it to within one score. And then Cloud9 were able to just kind of park the bus, to use a soccer term, and really coast to a victory here. So, really fun exposure as well. If you missed it, definitely go check that out. The way that the Paris Shellmate side was able to rally towards the end of the game was really fun to watch, and it definitely shows some of the potential that Overload has to be a really, really surprisingly fun mode when we get to LAN. Now, looking at the series performance, we of course had Ghosty going 31-23 on the map. Everybody else on the Paris side went negative, and then same thing with his counterpart Afro. He went positive, and everybody on his team was in the red. So yeah, Afro and Ghosty, they just had an absolute battle. 1.38 out of Afro, 1.35 out of Dan Ghosty. So those two went to war. Map 4, speaking of going to war, Cloud9 did not go to war this time. It was 250-136, and I think this is where they kind of started running out of momentum within this series. Of course, you can see in the scoreboard, Ghosty, Neptune, and Sib, they heated up, they locked in. Ghosty 1.43, Nep 1.12, and Sib 1.25. And everybody on Cloud9 New York side, Sib's former team, went negative. So looking at the map 5 S&D on exposure, this was pretty much a blink and you'll miss it kind of S&D. Dan and Neptune, they both popped takeover. They had the little 2K team takeover cheese. And yeah, everybody had takeover. Sib had takeover. He was 6 and 3. Envoy was 4 and 5. I mean, everybody's just Harlem Globetrotting on the ass, you know. So that's how the series ended. I mean, there wasn't really a lot to say about the game 5. Cloud9 were just completely outclassed, and outgunned. Now, we finally moved on to Sunday. I know this video is taking for fucking ever, dude, right? But anyways, it was an insane weekend with a lot of upsets. We had really the resurgence of the Royal Ravens for the first time in a couple of years, where they're serious contenders, not just major one potentials, right? Also, we had Riyadh versus G2. Then we had Optic versus Faze, which was nuts. So if you guys are thinking about it realistically, this should be a pretty long video. It should be a little bit longer, but I'm just not feeling the best, so trying to clip it a little bit. So looking at it, let's get into Carolina versus G2. This is how we started our Sunday, and this was a great way to start Sunday. Honestly, our match MVP was who else but the good Emperor Nero. Emperor for a weekend, let's just say it, not a day. Emperor for a weekend. And yeah, I mean, 117 and 85, he was just doing whatever he wanted to on the map, and the only person who was putting up any sort of resistance to him was Mamba with a 1.12, former teammate of Craze. So, we had the Mamba versus Craze Bowl. This was always destined to be a fun one. And let's look at the map one. Astral 1126, Kremp 1927. I mean, yeah, they just got bodied. Craze 28 and 16. Craze is going crazy on this map. I do remember that. Nero as well. It was kind of like, who are you going to pay attention to? And they both were just, I don't know, they were just moving diff. So looking at the map too, we had Raid S&D going 6-2 in favor of G2 Minnesota. This is where they got their get back, rebounded, hit the freeze frame. Well, you're kind of wondering how I won. You're probably wondering how I wound up in this position, as people like to say. And yeah, they just corrected the ship. No Nautilus vibes, no crash underwater. Um, 8 and 3 from Estriel, Kremp 8 and 6, Mamba 6 and 4, and then Nero tried to save the sinking Titanic, excuse me. But much like Rome, et tu Brute, he took one right to the back, and that was the end of the scene. 10 and 7 for Nero is how it ended in that map. Map 3, speaking of another one where it ended pretty quick, Carolina Royal Ravens, all green lights, team takeover activated. Mamba, of course, he had the lone takeover on his team. He's trying to cross him up, hit those threes, whatever. But brother, look at the scoreboard. You're down 50. So, game was over. Game's gone. 28 and 20 out of Exceed, 24 and 21 out of Lurks, 27 and 22 out of Nero, and 27 out of 25. Absolute mania from the Ravens. They're absolutely looking nuts out here. They're looking like the opposite of the Harbaugh coach Ravens, right? So, looking at the map 4, we of course had someone who looked like the Harbaugh coach Ravens when they won that Super Bowl with Flacco, Kremp, dropping 54 and 38. Yes, 54 4 real kills. Not EKIA, real kills. Then you have Mamba right there with him, 39 and 33. That's how they pushed the game 5. And honestly, Lurks and Nero, they both kind of got sold here, right? Like, Craze 27 and 39, Exceed 27 and 40. If they had a decent enough map, both these guys, I mean, the series probably would have been over, right? Like, but Kremp dropped 54 and he was everywhere on the map, so it's hard to say. I feel like G2 was probably going to win regardless, but Carolina had so much pressure. If they got a more consistent performance out of Craze and Exceed, who knows how this would have gone. Very fun series, very fun map. Now, looking at our last map of this matchup, we of course had Estriel going 3 and 7, Kremp 7 and 7, Mamba 10 and 6, and Skies 4 and 7 for the L. They lost 6-3 to the Carolina Royal Raven side, a very strong side who was led by a surging Nero, who's looking to be the best player in the game according to his teammate Exceed. I'm inclined to agree. I feel like Nero was on the verge of an insane breakout last year in Black Ops 6. His POV was probably one of the best, if not the best, of a player outside the top 4. So I'm happy to see him taking this massive step up and finally getting the eyeballs from the community that he has always deserved, because most of you guys don't watch all the games. So that's why I'm here. That's why a lot of you guys appreciate what I do. And yeah, happy to see Nero making his way onto your TVs as well. So looking at people who made their ways onto all of our TVs, we had Optic Texas taking on the Vancouver Surge. They said, feeling like Tej, nah, feeling like 3-1 back to the lobby, brothers. So after Optic was intent on sending these Vancouver boys to Dagestan for 3 days and forget. We'll see how this series went. Who else is the series MVP but Mercules, right? Savior of Optic, like I always say. 1.45 in HP, 4.0 KD in S&D, and a 1.17 in Overload. Just pure lights out performance from the boy Merc. So looking at the map 1, well, let's look at the actual series overview first, right? Warlord rebound after that embarrassing Faze Aster class series. Needed that, right? 95 and 75 out of Shotzi. Mercules 86 and 62. Then you had Hook 81, 69, Dashy 77 and 30. So no splashy today. Looking at the Vancouver Surge side, everybody just got put in the red. Stocks are down, everything's down. They got put down. So let's look at the map 1. That, of course, being Exposure HP. This was a decently close one. About 1 hill's difference, give or take about 3 seconds. And yeah, I mean, the Vancouver Surge, they looked pretty serviceable here. TJ 29-28, 23 and 27 out of Lunars, 23 and 29 out of Gwen, and 22 and 31 out of Abe. So going up against defending world champs, the team who's looked to be the best in the game, clear cut far and away for really the last 5 months. Not really that much to take away, right? I mean, they've been on top of the world since really 6 months. I mean, July, right? So yeah, I mean, these guys have been on top of the world for half a year. If you lose to them, there's really no shame in that. Looking at, of course, the Optic Texas side, I mean, Mercules 38 and 18. Yeah, you might just want to back out. 32 and 30 from Shotzi's not even worth talking about. I mean, 38 and 18, the guy blacked out. So looking at, okay, yeah, he blacked out twice. Map 2, Den, S&D, 6-0. They need some leg room. 9 and 3 out of Dashy. No splashy here. Hook had his feet up 2 and 3. Merc 4 and 1, and Shotzi 8 and 2. So yeah, they were just. I hope Vancouver plugged in. Okay, clearly Vancouver plugged him in for map 3. That's a joke. I did highlights, so I knew they plugged in for map 3. But anyways, Vancouver, of course, rebounded in map 3. Lunars 32 and 19. Overperformance to get them this Scar Overload performance win. Honestly, TJ and Lunars were the only serviceable players in this map, and it showed, right? Look at the scoreline. Look at the damage difference, right? Abe's only 200 damage behind Lunars, to be fair, but still, Gwen is almost 1,000 damage behind Lunars. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a consistent damage output. When you look at Optic, everybody's in the same ballpark, relatively speaking. There's about a 600, damage range. A little bit over 500 and something. So, I don't know, man. It just felt like Optic were a lot closer, and that's why this game was so close. So yeah, looking at the Optic Texas side, 1.08, 1.17, and 1.16 for the loss. It honestly just came down to micro adjustments and team decisions, really just small plays. Looking at the Den HP, this of course went the way of Optic Texas to the surprise of no one, 250 to 152. I mean, Optic's overload definitely needs a lot of work. They've looked very unsure on it. That's the best way I can describe it. So I think they just have to get their strats down. And looking at the way they close out this series, I mean, they definitely know how to play the game, right? 23 and 17 from Dashy. Hook, he finally woke up here, 31 and 17, looked great. Shotzi, 26 and 18. And then Mercules had a rare bad map, 17 and 20, but I mean, you win by 100 points, who cares? Looking at the last match of the weekend, we had Toronto Koi taking on the LA Thieves, and you guys know I thought it would be a 3-2 in favor of Toronto Koi. I felt like their S&D was just better, but I felt like LA Thieves were definitely going to struggle in the overload, and definitely one of the hard points at the least. So, looking at the series, your boy was right. Of course, Toronto Koi won this. I'm going to wrap this up kind of quick. Starting to feel not so great, and this has been 30 minutes, so yeah, I got my work cut out for me. Anyways, looking at the series, we of course had, like I said, Toronto boys taking it. And who else was the MVP but Joe Deceives with the 1.15 HP KD, 3.5 S&D KD, and then 0.96 in overload. So, gonna look past overload. It was obviously a blowout, so kind of doesn't matter as much. 66 and 53 out of Joe, 58 and 45 out of Insight. And then on the LA Thieves side, everybody in the red. Well, half the players in the red, right? Scrap and Hydra, the duo from last year, basically had almost the same exact KD to the decimal point, but yeah, I mean, they both dropped over 60. They both did their thing. So let's look at the map one. This, of course, being Den HP. This is a really close one. Honestly, this was the real momentum swing in the series. I feel like if the Thieves had won this, the series would have gone a lot deeper. But losing in such a heartbreaking fashion when you had Kenny and Abizi both having really, really bad games was kind of the nail in the coffin here, right? After such a long layover, all the shit that people have talked about, replacing Neum with Kenny, all the drama surrounding, oh, if Kenny isn't replaced before Major 1, then Neum's substitution spot is, of course, going to expire. Neum is on loan only under the pretenses that he would get a roster spot after the first major, right? So if he doesn't get signed, he goes right back to Huntsman. And yeah, so that's why this was so packed, I guess, in terms of the consequence of this series and how things spiraled emotionally. There was just a lot going into it. Scrap 34 and 27, and then Hydra 29 and 25. They're the only standouts on LA Thieves side. Honestly, Kleenex didn't even have his best game, neither did Real, but their pressure as a team was just more consistently present on the map, I would say. In the map, too, we had Joe Deceives dropping 14 and 4. I mean, I wish you guys could see me. Like, I just shook my head and threw my hands up. I don't have anything else to say. 7-6 from Kleenex, 7-5 from Real, 8 and 7 from Scrap, Hydra 5 and 8. Let's go next. I mean, not a lot to say there. Map 3, Kleenex, he took him out, put him on the table, said this is over, take him or leave him. And Insight is right there with him. He said, yeah, I mean, we've been running y'all for a minute. Like, what up? So, yeah, BZ had his first decent map in this series, going 27 and 26, and then Hydra, his SMG duo, is right there with him, 26 and 21. But it was too little too late. I feel like the vibes were already in the toilet. Thieves were mentally just kind of out of the series, just in the way that they were losing things. And yeah, I feel like this was honestly just a emotion series where Thieves let the emotional toll of the series kind of weigh on them throughout it, and it just kind of weighed them down. So hopefully it doesn't happen to them again. I feel like Kenny will stay at least throughout this weekend's matches. I mean, it's Thursday, so if he was going to be dismissed, we would have heard by now. But yeah, that'll just about wrap it up for this past week's CDL matches, that being week 3 of stage 1 of the CDL 2026 season. Be sure to come back to the channel for a preview of what to expect going into today's matches at time of upload, that being Friday's matches, where we'll see the Miami Heretics taking on the Vancouver Surge. Miami keeps getting these Friday matches, man. We'll have Paris Gentlemates taking on Riyadh Falcons. That should be a super fucking banger, boys. And then we have Boston Breach taking on Miami Heretics draft Saturday. Oh, we about to be eating. Ravens Koi. Oh, Cloud9 Faze. Oh, Breach Cloud9. Oh, Faze cheats. Oh, boy, this is about to be a weekend. All right, I'll see you guys on the next video. Once again, this is Chris from Fake Sports News, Access Rotation, however the flip you know me in these interwebs. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Once again, appreciate all the love and support. And yeah, stick with your boy for the rest of the year. I'm going to be running it all the way up. Peace.